Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you being with us tonight. I will call this regular meeting of the Asheboro City Council for January 7th to order. Would invite each and every one in the room to stand and join me in a moment of silent prayer, and I invite you to pray in any manner that you are comfortable, and we will follow that with Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Would remind everybody that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube tonight. So smile, you're on camera. And would like to also mention that Ms. Carter, who usually joins us from home by telephone, will not be with us tonight. The state has interpreted some of our processes for zoning cases and various things as not Zoom friendly in a manner of speaking. So she will not be joining us from home tonight. And you also notice that Councilwoman Katie Snuggs is not with us, and we would like for you to keep her in your thoughts and prayers. She is at home recovering from an illness. So we are too short tonight, but we do have a quorum, and we'll be able to complete our business as we expect to. The first item, this is the appointed time for a public comment period. Is there anyone in the house tonight that would like to address the council on any matters of city business or concern? Okay, I see no one coming forward, so we will move on to item 4, and I'll call on City Manager Ogburn. We've got a couple of retirements to recognize tonight, and bittersweet moments. We're happy for the retirees, but on the other hand, we're losing a lot of good experience. And the good news there is we have other good experience to take their place. So, John?
Thank you, Mayor. I've asked Chief Landfill to come up. And after Police Officer Kevin Ingold, retired.
Chief, before you get started, I know we're social distancing, but there are a lot of police officers here tonight in support of Ingold's retirement. So gather in, like, if you want to, a little bit. Try to keep 6 to 8 feet between you, and make sure you've got your mask on. Everybody seems to, so we don't want this to be we don't want you to miss it. An event like this doesn't happen very often. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, good evening. Manager. I'd like to recognize Kevin Ingold. Been with us since 1993. Dedicated. Is going to be there when he says he is. Great for the city of Asheboro and the citizens. And it's kind of, for me, it's me and Kevin was on the same patrol team in '93, and we both started about the same time. And he's retiring, but I'm still here. But we got you this plaque, Kevin, in honor of you and your over 27 years of service, I believe, to the city. And we appreciate you and love you. And there's your plaque, and we'll probably snap a picture. But we got some. Give you the bump. We also going to give you your Glock sidearm, as we do with all retirees. You've earned it. And me and Kevin, we taught firearms for a long, long time together, and we're losing a great firearms instructor. I brought him right along to, he's a top-notch shooter now, so anyway.
Oh, him everything he knows, huh?
I did. And the important stuff, put this off the camera, this is a little gift for you. And maybe you can buy yourself something with that, some ammo or something. Use that.
Where'd you find the ammo?
But we appreciate you. And we appreciate all the service that you give us. Thank you very much, sir.
Kevin, on behalf of the citizens, I'll follow right along. I followed along with what the chief said. I was in Archdale in 1993, I'm still here too. This is presented to Kevin Ingold on behalf of the devoted service. The Asheboro police officer is a master police officer for 30 years of service, 93 to 2027. On behalf of the citizens and council, congratulations, we're going to miss you. We appreciate all your dedicated service. This is the first one of these we had in this COVID situation where we had the mask and all that, so just on behalf of the citizens, welcome, and I think Trevor will come and take a picture.
Oh, both of them, on each side.
It never ceases to amaze me. Well, it always amazes me. In fact, every time I run into individuals that are on council, they call us by our first name. I have no idea how in the world you keep up with that many people. And the same thing is when I run in and we're up at Public Works. It's first name. That goes a lot to tell someone how much we are a family. How close everybody that are employees of the city are. These past few years are definitely unprecedented times. There's lack of assistance, but it always does come from here. It comes from when working third shift and other shifts. We're in drive-throughs, grab what you get, running call to call, and someone's in front of you getting theirs, and they pay for hours. So we've always had an unwritten rule. Whenever someone gets ours, we get the one that's behind us. It's just amazing how this city, local government, and the public has gotten along so well. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank you, City Council, guests. I can say it's been interesting. It's been really bittersweet. It has. About the first several weeks, it was really tough because I'm so used to getting up at 5, coming on in, and seeing everybody at the main office and the satellite offices, and just the ins and outs of everything and going for so long. And it was tough to finally come up with the idea of it was time to let go. The one thing that I do look forward to is Chief Lineberry and Captain Thompson have allowed me to stay on as a fire instructor working through the Randolph Community College. That meant a lot to me. I enjoy being on the range with everyone. I really do. Thank you all again. And have a good night. Thank you.
Officer, Officer Engel, let me,
Yes, sir.
on behalf of the council, tell you how proud we are of you and all the officers, and I think it's quite a testament to you and your service that there are so many police officers here tonight to wish you well in your retirement. So we hope for you that your retirement is everything you want it to be and then some. Good luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Manager Ogburn has another retirement to recognize.
We have one more, Battalion Chief
We've been hacked.
Brian Lewis, retired from the Asheboro Fire Department, and Chief Summers. Just one guy back there, holding uniform, three of them.
Yeah, Chief, you wanna invite your officers, firefighters to come in and spread out in the room.
Mayor, council, members, Mr. Ogburn, certainly appreciate being here tonight, and it's an honor for me. I've known Chief Lewis for approximately 2 years. This is an individual that truly loves the city of Asheboro. His leadership and his mentorship to men and women of Asheboro Fire Department will not be forgotten, and he will sorely be missed. Lewis, I want to congratulate you on 24 years of glorious service to the city of Asheboro and Asheboro County. I'd like to present you. In addition, present you with your Asheboro. I think your wife is here tonight.
Yes.
This is my wife, Ginger. Glad you guys came. Thank you.
Chief, on behalf of the city council and the citizens of Asheboro, I'll get this into the record. Present to Brian Lewis, an appreciation for devoted service. And the fire department is fire battalion chief for 24 years of service in the same. So, really appreciate it on behalf of everyone. I will let you know that, on the main disaster we had the, back in the summer, when we had the marches, Chief Lewis and I spent a lot of time together. He was always a guy I could go to for assistance and advice on how to work matters or disaster related matters, so I really appreciate that personally, and I want to miss our relationship, and best wishes to you, and thanks all personally for coming out tonight, so, go right ahead.
So emotional triggers, is tough. Kevin, thanks for not shooting me. There's a story behind that. Appreciate that, like probably in 1998 or so. So anyway, thanks, Kevin. I love y'all guys and girls. I appreciate y'all showing up for my retirement. I appreciate that. So, just like I told Chief Summers, retirement is a bittersweet thing, and it's got emotional triggers, like I said. I did find out one thing is the biggest emotional thing that I've had since I retired is when I found out that the federal government's going to tax me 85% of my Social Security benefit. So I thought, wow, I cried. So anyway, I would like to thank Mr. Ogburn, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, for the chance to serve Asheboro for the last 24 years was a change. I grew up, I think, when I know Mr. Councilwoman Redding, Councilman Moffitt, and Mayor Smith. I think we grew up pretty much in the same neighborhood. I know Jane and I did. I'm sorry, Miss Betty. We grew up in the same neighborhood, so I'm an Asheboro guy. I'm an Asheboro, long-time Asheboro guy. So it's been a great pleasure to serve the citizens, men and women of Asheboro, and the people who travel through. And I hope we've done it well. Thanks. Thank you, Chief.
Very good picture. Brian,
Yes, sir.
on behalf of the council, I want to tell you how proud we are of you and your service to this community. I've known you almost 60 years.
Hey, I didn't know we were gonna talk about age.
But,
Don't talk about anything went on 45 years ago. is it?
and,
And just so
and,
everybody knows, Brian is my big brother's age, not mine.
and
Oh, really?
we are, the citizens of Asheboro are very fortunate to have people like you that serve them, and you've done a yeoman's job. We appreciate you and wish for you the best of possible retirements and hope it's everything you want it to be, you and Kevin both. So good luck to you, and we hope to see you around.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Good luck, Ginger. Okay, call on Deputy City Clerk Tammy Williams to give us an update on the Mayor's Fitness Challenge.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I kind of got tasked this from Debbie. She got busy, and so I got nominated as team captain 2 years ago, I guess. So I kind of stayed on everybody in City Hall to, let's get these steps. We did get first place last year, not this year, but we did have a total of 6,495,000 steps with everybody on our team. We did have the male with the most steps. That was Jeff Cagle, and he had 1,143,000. So everybody does good at participating, and it's great. So maybe we'll get first next year. It'd be great. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have in front of you the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second? Second. Second, Mr. Bell. And Mr. Bell, it's good to see you back.
It's good to be back.
Hope you're doing well.
I am, thank you.
Good. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Item 8, City Attorney Mr. Sugg will present a second reading, public hearing, and vote on construction, demolition, debris, landfill franchise ordinance. I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was asking Mr. Morton to come in. He'll be joining us. Join me there if you'd like. We have an advertised public hearing on the construction and demolition debris landfill ordinance. You did have the first reading of this ordinance in December and approved it. It's now on for public comment, in addition to the comments from Mr. Morton. I can tell you, I'm not going to take a whole lot of your time in describing it because nothing really has changed. There's been a very successful operation for a number of years at Gold Hill, thanks to the fine work of Mr. Morton. There's nothing changing about the waste stream, the service area, their prices, it's all the same. Facility plan is staying the same. What is different is they're going to be selling, and the entity buying it will be Asheboro Land Development, LLC. They are properly established with the Secretary of State's office. We've had good discussions with them. The whole purpose in this ordinance, the city staff has found no issue with it. The main thing now is to get compliance with the regulators, with the state, or for the transaction to be able to close. To that end, if you so choose to pass this ordinance on its second reading, the ordinance itself will become effective tonight. It has a specific provision, though, designed to facilitate the transaction, that it does not repeal any existing franchise until April the 1st, so as to allow there to be that gap in time while the transaction closes. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but otherwise I will defer to Mr. Morton for any comments he'd like to make.
Any questions? All right, this is a public hearing. Mr. Morton, would you like to address council?
I'd just like to answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions of Mr. Morton? Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address the council regarding this franchise ordinance request? Hearing none, I will move to the deliberative action and ask the council for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that, based on the presentation, that we approve.
I have a motion to approve by Councilman Moffitt. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Morton. Good luck with your sale, and on behalf of the city, I will tell you it's been a pleasure dealing with you all these years.
I'll still be there.
Okay,
I'll still be the face of the place there.
all right. Good. I can't imagine driving up out there and dealing with somebody else.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay, Mr. Nuttall. And before we get started with your part, I would like to say that it is good to see you back in the house.
Thank you, Mayor.
I know you've had a difficult time recuperating, and it's good to have you back, and I hope you're doing well.
Thank you, I am.
And I am confident that 2021 is going to be a better year for you and all of us.
That's all hope, so. Unfortunately, it's a fairly low bar, but I will try.
Okay, item 9A is I'll open a hearing on the application RZ-CUP 20-12 to rezone a portion of property at 124 Woodcrest Road from R10 to CUI2, zoning and obtaining conditional use permit. Go right ahead, Mr. Nuttall.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, does involve a quasi-judicial decision of the council, so it does require testimony to be given under oath. Now would be the appropriate time for those who know that they will be speaking on this matter to step forward and be administered the oath by the clerk.
You affirm that the information that you're gonna give is correct and to the best of your knowledge.
As the mayor said, this application does involve both a rezoning and a request for a conditional use permit. The applicant on the request is the property owner, SSV Properties. We are looking at property at 124 Woodcrest. This is a request to take the property from medium-density residential to conditional use I2. The rezoning piece of this application involves just a small portion of the property, as you'll see in your report and on the map. The conditional use permit that's requested would cover the entirety of the property. We are looking at one Randolph County PIN, which is up on the screen. The rezoning portion of this request involves less than half an acre of 6.2 acres. There is an existing warehouse use on the property. This is an overview map showing the subject parcel outlined in blue. The area subject to the rezoning request is identified as A1 on the screen. You can see as you move east
away from A1, we pick up purple and red shading, which denotes industrial and commercial zoning, which is covers the corridor along North Fayetteville Street, as well as those non-residential uses in existence along Woodcrest. As you move further west, you start to see the residential zoning that's in place. That blue line that's parallel with Northside Terrace is actually the boundary between the city limits and the extraterritorial planning jurisdiction for the city. Real quickly, looking at the topographic map, we do have city services and provide full city services to the property. There's no floodplain or regulated stream buffers or things of that nature that would affect development from the city standpoint. This is an aerial of the property that gives you a better idea of what portion of this property is subject to the rezoning request, and that's that triangle really at the intersection of North Side and Woodcrest. This is the subject property, which is already, again, zoned conditional use I2. As seen from Woodcrest, that's the existing warehouse. This is kind of an idea of the area of zoning, area of property that's requested to be, have its zoning amended. That's a view from Northside Terrace. This is standing along the frontage of the property looking up Woodcrest towards Northside, and then a view looking east from the frontage along Woodcrest towards Fayetteville Street. We are now on Northside looking north and looking south on Northside. So you can see the difference between land uses depending on what street we are on. Real quickly, again, we are dealing with property that's in the city limits. The city does maintain Woodcrest. It does serve several non-residential properties east of the subject property. Northside Terrace is in fact state maintained. The current use of the property again is warehouse. The applicant has filed a corresponding conditional use permit that would allow both wholesale distribution as well as a continuation of the warehouse use. As I said, the majority of the property is already zoned conditional use I2, and this request that pertains to the zoning it only involves a small portion of the property. If you look at the city zoning ordinance for definition of the I2 district, it is intended to produce areas for intensive manufacturing, warehousing, processing, and assembly uses, which are controlled by performance standards. We point out that the zoning ordinance does require some landscape yards, typically for non-residential uses that develop within the industrial district. Screening and buffering can also come into play. Those are matters that you typically review as part of a site plan review process, which we'll get into with the conditional use permit. As we look at the rezoning portion of this request and turn to the land development plan for some guidance, it's important to note that the proposed land use map within the city's land development plan does call for industrial development for the property. It's within the northeast small area plan. It is a primary growth strategy. Staff reviewed the goals and policies of the land development plan and found that 7 out of 8 tended to be supportive of this request. It is designated for industrial development. It's supported by the Northeast Small Areas Plan that recommends accommodating and allowing for expansion of existing industrial uses in appropriate areas. We have a CUP that comes along with this request to hopefully ensure compatibility. And we believe this is a realistic zoning for this property considering what's around it. Both the staff and the planning board forward a positive recommendation on the zoning piece. Quickly turning to the details of the permit request that go along with this request. It is again a permit that will cover the entirety of the property for wholesale distribution as well as warehousing. The definition of a warehouse is up on the screen for you to read, as well as the definition of wholesale distribution. That's what we can expect to see if the permit is approved. You'll see from the site plan there are no additions proposed to that existing structure. The applicant is proposing to pave the existing gravel parking area, as well as making some changes to the loading dock that's outside the building. I'll note that that gravel parking lot is now considered legal nonconforming because we do not have provisions for gravel parking for required areas of parking. So this request, if approved, would bring that nonconformity into compliance with the ordinance. Access to the property, as you see, is from Woodcrest, which is a city street. The applicant is going through the process for permitting with the city on any driveway improvements. You all have the site plan, but I've put it up on the screen just to let those in the audience see. There's quite a bit of undeveloped property, as you can see from this plan. The developed area is just a small portion of it, and that doesn't really change with this application. There has been a floor plan provided that shows some of the improvements that will be occurring, as well as building elevations showing some additional railing, some replacement of a canopy, as well as a new overhead door on the, I think that is the east side of the building. There will be a new overhead door added. In reviewing the application, staff felt there was just a few minor conditions that we felt were important to include should council hear evidence warranting the granting of the permit. Those are intended to ensure compliance, continued compliance with the city's zoning ordinance. They pertain to landscaping, the need and requirement for a driveway permit, a condition that seeks to have additional details on lighting submitted to the staff to ensure compliance, a condition that allows for some flexibility in how parking is provided to the site, which is condition D. And then finally, as we do with all conditional use permits, a condition that speaks to the need to have the memorandum of land use and restrictions executed, which is prepared by the city attorney. The applicant's representative is here this evening. I'm going to leave the findings of fact up on the screen that Mr. Trollinger, I expect, will cover, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Nuttall. Are there any questions of Mr. Nuttall? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Trollinger, come on in, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Mark Trollinger, representing the applicant. Thank you, Trevor, for a thorough job, as always, in presenting the information. First of all, we are in favor of the three conditions that are being proposed. I have no problem with any of those. Would like to speak to the four-way or the four tests that we're required to meet. I won't read them unless you like, but test number one, the use will not cause any significant changes to the property. It's not a hazardous use. No health or safety concerns will be added to the current use. In fact, exterior lighting and an overall reduction in the size of the trucks serving the facility should improve public safety in the area. Item number two, to the best of our knowledge, we will be in compliance with all of the conditions and specifications of the zoning ordinance. Item number three, the aesthetic upgrades to the property, along with the paving of the parking lot, should increase the value of the adjoining properties. The building is not being expanded. It's not encroaching further over on towards adjacent properties. There's a large natural buffer that will be maintained along both sides of the property as well as the back of the property. Item number four, the use is very compatible with the surrounding land uses. The area is indicated as industrial on the proposed land use map. The rezoning is compliant with the objectives of the growth strategy map, and the property is located in the primary growth area. It is also consistent with the land category descriptions. The only item that was identified by staff that did not support the request is that it does not provide appropriate transitional land use between industrial and residential. Property is already developed in that manner, so it's really not a viable factor in the request. We're dealing with an existing structure, an existing use that's been there for years. I would like to mention a minor amendment just for the record. There's a site plan in front of you, shows a driveway. Currently, the driveway entrance to the property covers approximately 125 linear feet. It's gravel. What you see there shows an island in the center of it with 250-foot entrance and exit. We would like to consider possibly modifying that, maybe eliminating that island due to tractor trailers coming into the property to allow them to be able to enter the property, circle around through it without having to back out in the road and have to deal with the island. That's something that we proposed, but in talking with the owners over the last few weeks since the drawing was submitted, I feel like it's probably better off not to do that and actually pull the driveway in to a 100-foot total. This would, of course, require approval from the city engineering department, a permit from the city, and would have to be in accordance with city policies. So I'm not making a statement whether that would be done or not, but just for your information, that's something we are considering.
There was also a sign shown in the island, is that?
Yes, sir. So if that sign, if the island would move, the sign would move to the northern edge of the driveway entrance. And that is an approvable item also in the sign ordinance. Be glad to answer any questions.
Questions, anybody?
Is it,
Okay.
as far as the proposed change, Trevor, is that an item worthy of consideration? What are we looking at there?
So the zoning ordinance identifies what is considered a major modification and what's considered a minor modification. We would, if the applicant does propose to eliminate that island, we would review that change against the ordinance definition. I think it's helpful that Mr. Trollinger noted that on the record this evening, and I will also say we have conditioned the request such that the city engineering department must issue that driveway permit. So when this question was brought to us, we said that we would evaluate any change based on the ordinance's definition of what you have to see again versus what we can approve at the staff level. I'm hopeful if it's that minor in nature that we may be able to handle it at the staff level.
Would it be fair to say that, as presented, in my understanding, the only difference is gravel and paving? I mean, there's not an island there now. Right,
there's not an island there now. You know, the plan would show more, the plan shows more of a concrete identification of entry and exit on the property, which typically the zoning ordinance looks for. In this case, we have a legal non-conforming situation, which we generally allow to continue. So we'll go through the analysis if they want to eliminate that. Like I said, we'll hopefully be able to handle that at the staff level. If not, we would present it to you.
At a personal level, I don't see any problem with it, but duly noted.
If I may ask, Mr. Mayor, and I'll direct this to Mr. Nuttall, since his staff will be making the analysis. Would you agree that it would be helpful, and whoever makes the motion, if a motion is made to grant the requested, assuming the rezoning occurs, and there's a motion to make grant the conditional use permit, since part of the analysis on whether it qualifies as a modification or not is a review of the proceedings of the council, is that if part of the motion to grant a permit happened to include a statement, it would find its way into the final decision document, not as a condition, but stating that the council did not find the island shown on the site plan to be an essential part of their basis for the decision. Does that make sense? You asked me where I'm coming from. I think that helps.
Yeah, it does, and should that be included in that permit order, I think that would strengthen the position of staff to be able to handle that at the administrative level.
Just for clarification, Mr. Trollinger, when you say the north end, I guess it'd be the east or west end, so. The west end, okay. Right, okay, thank you.
Uphill side. North. North.
And Mr. Mayor, while I'm asking if you wouldn't mind, if Mr. Trollinger wouldn't mind, I know you have experience, Mr. Trollinger, in the real estate development area. Would you mind stating, you gave an opinion as to the no impact negative impact on adjoining properties. Would you mind stating for the record your experience where the council could consider you an expert in this field?
Yes, sir. I have a degree in architecture. I've been in business, in the general construction business in Asheboro for 38-plus years. We've worked with quite a few developments, rezonings, commercial buildings, real estate, and so my comments on the value of the adjoining properties are based on years of experience in living in Asheboro.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Trollinger? Is anyone else in the house tonight that would like to address the council on this request? Okay, we can move to the deliberative phase. And ask council for their thoughts.
Just for clarification, Jeff, do we need separate rezoning request and then the conditional use on a separate motion?
That is correct. It's fine to combine the consistency statement and the rezoning in one motion, but we do need a completely separate one for the permit itself.
Mayor, based on the consistency statement provided by staff and the evidence presented, I move that we approve the conditional use permit with conditions as enumerated by staff.
If I may just
We're
ask.
getting ahead of that.
I would say if you don't mind, I think the clerk's going to interpret two separate motions in there, with your permission, that there's the consistency statement you are adopting and approving the requested rezoning.
That's correct.
And so the vote then, and then we'll move on to the second.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilman Bell to approve the rezoning request based on the consistency statement and the evidence presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Ms. Redding? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The rezoning request is approved. And now I will entertain a motion regarding the conditional use permit.
Mayor, based on the presentation, I think that the four-part test has been made, that we approve the conditional use permit as presented with the conditions listed by staff and acceptable to the applicant. And noting for the record that as part of our discussions, we discussed the island and that is not an essential element to our consideration of approving the conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Barrell. May I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Conditional use permit request is approved also. Thank you, Mr. Trollinger. Okay, item 9B, discussion of a pending study of public right-of-way needs on Sunset Avenue from Davis Street to Church Street.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to update council briefly on some work at the staff level that very well may rise to the council level for consideration regarding public right-of-way needs along Sunset Avenue, and specifically in the stretch of Sunset from Davis to Church. Just for some background, over the years, and particularly with kind of the redevelopment of the downtown area, we have had increasing interest from property owners about building additions that may slightly encroach into the public right-of-way along Sunset Avenue. That can present some challenges from an approval standpoint, even if it's seems to be a sensible and worthwhile project. One of those issues being that today the city zoning ordinance generally does not permit structures within the public right-of-way. So if we establish that a proposed structure is in fact within the public right-of-way, we have an issue with the zoning ordinance. There is an outlet of relief via the variance process, but that is a process that takes time and is not a guaranteed outcome. So while the zoning ordinance says one thing about structures and public right-of-ways, the city code does authorize limited encroachments over sidewalks. And these issues and proposals we've had from property owners particularly deal with structures that would lead to a covering over the sidewalk on Sunset Avenue. If you look at the city code, chapter 99, there are some standards outlined in the city code that do speak to encroachments that can occur over that sidewalk. It doesn't really get into whether that's the sidewalk is public or private. It basically establishes standards for any type of sidewalk that is presented as a public walkway. Further complicating matters is there is a specific statute that provides stipulations on the city's granting of easements within public right-of-way. So we're dealing with two local codes and a statute oftentimes when these proposals, which all vary in scope, are brought forth to us. Up on the screen, I have provided a map that shows Sunset Avenue from Davis Street, which is on the left side of the screen, to Fayetteville Street on the right side. Those orange arrows you see are intended to show the approximate location as reflected by the county tax parcel maps, reflecting the extent of that public right-of-way. It is noteworthy and something that we recently were reminded of, that the right-of-way along Sunset Avenue, at least according to the tax department, does vary. In the block from Davis to Church, it appears to be a 70-foot public right-of-way. When you cross Church, it appears to taper to a 50-foot right-of-way to the railroad track, and then you can see it opens back up pretty quickly to a 70-foot, appears to be a 70-foot right-of-way from the railroad track to Fayetteville Street. So in addition to some different code standards on a statute, we have varying right-of-way, apparent varying right-of-way widths along Sunset Avenue, which can impact development proposals. In addition, in this block of Sunset from Davis to Church, I've also put orange arrows up there that show the extent of that sidewalk from the right-of-way to the curb. And that right-of-way appears to go to the face of those buildings and 70 feet to the other side. Those arrows show you kind of the approximate location of and the width of that sidewalk, which in those locations where those orange arrows are is about 11 to 12 feet. Now, if you move east and west, you'll see that there are two different sidewalk sections here in this block. We have about an 8-foot wide sidewalk as we go towards Church Street and away from the orange areas. And then we have a more suburban sidewalk section as we move west towards Davis Street with a 5-foot sidewalk and probably a 2.5-foot grass strip. So we got 3 different sidewalk sections in this area of Sunset as well. Just a few photos to capture that. This is looking west on Sunset from Church. You can see the approximate 8-foot there, and then it widens to connect with the building fronts, and then further down the road it'll go to a 5-foot sidewalk. We grabbed some photos on the other side of Davis Street. We're pretty consistent in the section of sidewalk on on the south side of Sunset. And another shot looking back towards Church Street. So again, we're dealing with zoning ordinance and city code standards when we encounter these type of requests. The zoning ordinance, I've told you, prohibits most structures within the right-of-way. It establishes setbacks for structures off property lines. But again, the city code permits some encroachments adjacent to the street and specifically authorizes certain structures over sidewalks where certain conditions are met. So the city code contemplates some sort of improvements that can be made over sidewalks. It does stipulate those standards. They include how far a structure has to be from the curb, obviously to maintain pedestrian access. It stipulates overhead clearance, so you're not hitting your head as you're walking under that structure. And it also stipulates the use of non-combustible materials for construction of those structures. So this is coming to you now because we have had more serious discussions with an applicant who wants to further pursue options for development that may encroach into the public right-of-way. Pointing out some of the other requests we've seen over the years, we've seen second-story balcony addition requests that were encroaching into the public right-of-way, tons of canopies and awnings and signs. Lots of discussion with folks related to outside dining options, not surprisingly in the pandemic era. And all of these requests have been difficult to navigate through because of some of the standards that we have to deal with. So it's now that we've received kind of probably the most concrete proposal from somebody about the addition of a canopy over the sidewalk. Mr. Ogburn, after our internal discussions, directed the engineering department to begin some analysis on what is the city's right-of-way needs along Sunset Avenue. Again, we have 70 feet of right-of-way there. In other areas, we have 50. We have begun the process to evaluate what are our needs to ensure public pedestrian access as well as public infrastructure maintenance. We've also identified that should this or any other proposal be able to move forward, the council would have to consider an ordinance amendment to your zoning ordinance that would deal with encroachments within the public right-of-way. So that's where we are at. We wanted to let you know that there is study, it has been some response to this request that we have received. I expect that we will report back to council pretty soon on what the findings are. We've discussed this with Redevelopment Commission as well as the Planning Board, who generally seem to be supportive on allowing investments in the right manner, in the right way in the downtown area. So we'll complete that study and come back to you with what code revisions may be necessary should you want to, consider allowing certain type of encroachments over the sidewalk.
Is there a time frame, the goal for that?
Well, we know that the zoning, we have already initiated the process to get an application to the planning board to deal with the zoning ordinance. So that will go to planning board next month. It would come to you in March. That very well may align with, the final analysis from the city on right-of-way needs, if it doesn't occur before.
And if I can add, we do have a contract with the local surveyor to survey it and actually find the right-of-way in the front of the buildings and private, all the necessary measurements.
That sounds very reasonable. My understanding is the proposed development has a tentative schedule that they hope to adhere to, and I think this would allow that.
To the extent that we have control over our zoning, what is the state requirement with respect to the state statute?
Well, that's a good, if you're referring to the statute I referenced earlier,
Yes.
That statute addresses instances where the city is in a position where we must grant an easement for the use of a public right-of-way. And essentially what that statute says is that the city must treat the granting of that easement as a sale of property. So when we've had discussions with folks about, for instance, a second-story balcony, there was a possibility that we would need to grant an easement, deal with the zoning ordinance, and deal with this statute, which tells us we can't just grant that. There has to be some consideration.
On the other hand, if you abandoned right-of-way and then took an easement back if we had anything underneath it,
Correct.
then the abandoned right-of-way goes to the adjacent property owner, is that not correct?
I'm glad you mentioned that. The proposal we're looking at does involve the potential for a request to close some right-of-way. My understanding in this case is that that very likely would revert to the property owner should council close that, go through the process to close right-of-way. And part of what, this Mr. Ogburn directed staff to do is instead of looking at these, if we get one successful project, the anticipation is very likely will be more requests. And we would rather do this on a comprehensive, basis than on a piecemeal basis. So if we can identify where that right of way is, what our needs are, it's the potential is we could bring more of a comprehensive consideration for closure versus one at a time. And that would speed things up.
Well, understanding that my next statement could have unintended consequences, however, that, it would appear to me that an abandonment cleans it up quicker and provides incentive as opposed to wanting to send a bill when we're really wanting people to develop.
Yeah, and one comment the planning board has was.
I don't know how you'd appraise it.
Was in terms of maintenance. Obviously if the city were to close right away, that would revert back to the property owner. There needs to be an understanding that the city, obviously the city no longer would have the right to maintain any sidewalk there. So this would come with some additional responsibilities if the city council were to decide to close a larger portion of right of way. Typically that process, we do typically look to have property owner consent when we consider right of way closure. So in the event where we feel like there is excess right of way, the next step really would be to talk with property owners to see what interest there may be.
I really like that direction if that's something that's worthy of works out for us.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all we'll have, but we'll be reporting back on this issue in the coming months.
All right. Item 9C, you have a report on the amendment process for an update on the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another hopefully brief update. We want to let you know what else may be coming before you. Well, what else I know will be coming before you.
We can tell you've been gone a while.
Yeah.
Catching up.
But this is related to Chapter 160D that the General Assembly passed in 2019. It's an attempt to really modernize the land use codes at the state level and make them easier to administer and understand. It was enacted in 2019, but the majority of those rules did not become effective until the summer of this year. So we have been going through a process to identify what we would need to do at our level, the city's level, local ordinance level, to ensure compliance with these mandates from the state. We do find that this Chapter 160D will require us to amend our zoning ordinance in several ways. The biggest mandate, or most consequential mandate from this new state chapter deals with conditional use zoning districts, and in fact eliminates the potential to use conditional use zoning districts, which is what we just saw with the Woodcrest application, involving our current practice of combining a legislative zoning matter with a quasi-judicial conditional use permit request. You know that you frequently see these types of requests as a part of the rezoning process. The state is saying that is no longer going to be an option for local governments to use. However, there is a tool that the city can use, which is not a conditional use zoning district, but is rather referred to as conditional zoning. And the big difference here is that it removes the quasi-judicial element from the equation. So no longer will folks be providing testimony under oath and going through a 4-part test of evidence. It will become a legislative decision of the council as to whether to approve that request or not. but it does allow conditions to be proposed by the applicant in the hopes of strengthening that application and ensuring compatibility, hopefully, with adjacent land uses. So there is some of the elements of the conditional use district that carry over with the conditional zoning option. So we know that we will need to amend the zoning ordinance to remove the conditional use district language and insert conditional zoning to the ordinance. I will note that the special use permit option is something that's still permissible. So we do have a number of uses in the zoning ordinance that require a special use permit. That would be the one time where you would still have to hold a quasi-judicial hearing to consider a request.
Would it be fair to observe in the difference of the two that you've got shown there? Any board, the council would have perhaps less liability in decision-making in that it wasn't sworn testimony in a prescribed manner. It'd be a legislative active decision. So that's probably arguably a plus if you're sitting on this side of the counter.
Sure.
If you're on that side of the counter, it probably gives somewhat less definitive recourse or appeal to an applicant. Would you think that would be? Because the process isn't as clearly defined as items of testimony.
Perhaps, but
I issue an opinion, that's just clear.
Yeah, but I will point out that under the, and it won't really matter because we have to move this direction, but in a,
if you get turned down.
You know, I think you're right that it does offer some defined rules that an applicant or property owner knows they must address in order to get their permit. When things move to legislative, from the council's perspective, you obviously have more discretion on whether the application is suitable or not. It does eliminate.
It can flow both ways.
That's right. So it does, I think, eliminate some elements of risk. There is always a concern over a contract zoning type of situation where we have to be careful with the essentially negotiating an approval at the council level.
They call that South Carolina.
So, we will strive to ensure that those conditions, we do our best to hammer out those conditions with the applicant before something comes. So you're not put in a position where, we're negotiating at the council level. But, hopefully there'll be some training that we can make available for this. It's something new to us as well. And so, but by and large, I think it's something that'll be more easily understood by applicants and probably adjacent property owners where we're dealing just with one decision. The other, there's some other highlights I want to just touch on real quickly. It does, and we do a good job of this already, and others probably don't, other jurisdictions, but it is now stipulated that the applicant and landowner must provide written consent to conditions related to a conditional use zoning district or special use permit to ensure our ability to enforce those conditions. Now, we do that via the memorandum of land use restrictions that the property owner signs and gets recorded. So we are in good shape under the current process. That may be modified slightly under this provision, but we're covered there, I think, based on our current practice. Of note, this chapter now does prohibit third-party initiated downzonings of the property. So no longer could the mayor ask to rezone Mr. Moffitt's property to a less permissive zoning district. That actually is allowed under the law today. You can actually request to rezone somebody else's property, and the only stipulation is that you have to ensure that they've received notice that you are making that request. Now, I can't think of a time we've ever seen it. And we would tell people that it has probably very little chance of being approved. But now at the state level, you must prohibit those types of applications. There is now a requirement to have an adopted land use plan to administer zoning. Previously, it was a should, and now it is if you want to have a zoning ordinance, you must have an adopted plan, and you must reasonably maintain it. So if your plan is 50 years old, or in our case, 20 years old, you have to reasonably maintain it. We're going through the process now to do that. this is another interesting provision. It says if the council approves a request that's not consistent with what the MAP's recommendation is, so let's say the MAP's recommendation calls for residential and you put it in a commercial district, that is automatically updates our land use map, and we will reflect that on the map. I think that's a good provision to ensure.
Especially when you get your plan 10 or more years out.
That's right.
I like that.
It actually saves us a lot of trouble from having to go back and remap all those. So these are things that I know will be coming to you. The anticipated schedule for this is we're working on the actual language now. We'll probably continue that into February. We expect this to go to the planning board in March for review and recommendation. That means it gets to you April. Perhaps you want a little time to really study and talk about it. We're giving you April and May to go through that process. But at the final month that we can have this approved, because it becomes effective in July, is June. So that's the schedule we anticipate. You'll be seeing a series of ordinance amendments related to ensuring compliance with new Chapter 160D. So we wanted to make you aware of that. There should not be anything of real substance when we bring those forward. We're really just trying to address this chapter. That concludes my remarks, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And you have, last item, request for council action on the reappointment of Van Rich to a 5-year term on the planning board.
Yes, sir. Chairman Rich, his term is up this month. He has agreed to continue to serve on the planning board for another 5-year term. And we ask for consideration of his reappointment.
Earlier, Mayor Smith made comment about, during the retirements, about a loss of experience and history. Someday, Van will retire. I don't know that we've got any appointment that will exceed the loss of history.
I joked with him after the planning board meeting that I really panicked when I saw his term was up, because I said, we can't lose you on my watch, Van. You need to put in for reappointment. So he graciously did.
Just for the. Entertain a motion to make that appointment.
Move we approve Van Rich to the Asheboro Planning Board.
Motion by Councilwoman Redding. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Moffitt. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulate Van Rich on our behalf.
I certainly will.
Thank him for his service.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor.
He has live pictures of the Plank Road.
Of what?
The Plank.
Okay.
With his car on it.
His car on.
Okay, Chief Summers.
The Moffitt Rich store.
Item 10, Fire Chief Summers will provide an update on the completed renovations at Fire Station 2.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, it's a lovely night. First and foremost, as always, I want to thank the mayor and council member, Mr. Ogburn, for your support, your encouragement, but most of all, your trust in the Asheboro Fire Department, and that means a great deal. That means a great deal. I would like to say that Asheboro Fire Department takes great pride in maintaining and condition and readiness of the fire stations, which we have been blessed to occupy. In fact, the fire stations are our home away from home. Quite often, the citizens come by, family members come by, and we want that first impression to be positive and a lasting impression. Fire Station 2 was built 1972, approximately 49 years ago, and strategically located to serve the community and the firefighters effectively and efficiently. However, to continue to serve the citizens and firefighters into the future, Fire Station 2 required some general repairs. For example, replacement of windows, doors, renovation of the day room, kitchen, living quarters, bathroom, and apparatus floor. With that in mind, we started renovation in May of 2020 and completed same in December of 2020. It was a tremendous endeavor with a majority of the work performed by facility maintenance, and they did an outstanding job, just phenomenal. We are well pleased with the results and are quite comfortable in stating that with the renovation, Station 2 is well slated to serve the community and Asheboro Fire Department into the future. Also, the renovation of Station 2 allowed us to enhance our council prevention program by replacing all the carpet with laminate flooring. At this time, I would like to go through some pictures and slides to show you the renovations. The first picture, as you can see, is the windows. If you look to the left, you can see how bad those windows had deteriorated. And to the right, that's the new windows. And the brick beneath that was actually performed by our personnel here in the city of Asheboro. The same with the exterior doors. Those metal doors, they were beginning to deteriorate. So we had the opportunity at this time to replace all of our exterior doors. This is John Nance and Steve Trojan. Now, John was responsible for the plumbing, all the plumbing in Station 2. Steve was the brick mason, and he conducted some of the painting. The work that they performed was exceptional, but more important to us was their disposition, positive disposition throughout the process. That meant a lot. This is Alan Kinney. Now, Alan, he's immobilizing the bathroom right here, but his specialty is sheetrock. And as I move forward, this is his job, seamless. It doesn't get any better than that. The flooring, we upgraded the flooring in the kitchen, the day room, as well as the living quarters. Now, it's twofold here because it assisted us with our cancer prevention program. Because as you know, carpet holds a lot of contaminants. With the laminate flooring, you don't have to worry about that. This is another picture of it. This is the day room. If you look at the arrow, that's a non-bearing wall. We actually took that wall out to create more space for the firefighters, which enhanced social distancing. This is a better picture of it. Boy, that's just outstanding. And that will help enhance our social distancing as we combat the pandemic. This is another angle. Now, this is the living quarters, and we put laminate flooring in the living quarters as well. And this is the hallway. However, the laminate also flowed into the bedrooms as well with new paint. And these are the bathrooms. We renovated every bathroom with new plumbing, tile, floors, walls, and paint. I would like to say one thing that's going to help with the longevity of Station 2 is that we replaced all the cast iron. And you know, over years, cast iron began to chip away internally. And we're using PVC now, which will increase the longevity of the station. In conclusion, Asheboro Fire Department would like to thank the mayor, city council, city manager, facility maintenance, Champion Tile, Save-A-Lot Flooring, J.C. Granite, Archidale Cabinet Shop, and a special thank you to Mr. Jimmy Cagle, Superintendent of Facilities, and Captain Jason Jones. They was pretty much the superintendent over this project, and they made sure we stayed on task. With the current renovations, the sustainability, Station 2 is well situated to serve the community and Asheboro Fire Department for many, many years to come. I know that was quick, but just wanted to give you guys an update on Station 2, and we are extremely proud of Station 2. So I would like to take this moment to invite council, when you're out and about, stop by for a cup of coffee. I know we got the pandemic going, but our new room, we can social distance and have a cup of coffee. Are there any questions?
It's sobering when you mentioned that the building, the original building was 50 years old, you know, because I'm sure we all remember it being built and still refer to it as the new fire station.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I have to revisit my thinking.
Well, it is a new fire station now.
Everything old is new again.
Fort Fire Station.
Yeah, just call it the Alamo.
But kudos to Mr. Chief McGloin. Strategically, he couldn't have been placed any better to serve the North End. So kudos to Chief McGloin.
Well, Chief, I got one question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you enjoy being in Asheboro as much as we enjoy having you here?
Yes, sir. I do. I absolutely do.
We're proud of you, proud of what you've done with the legacy of Chief McGloin there at the fire station. And we've got great equipment now and great facilities and great personnel. So thank you.
Thank you. And we certainly couldn't do it without the support of council. And we certainly appreciate that each and every day. And we seek each and every day to continue to exceed the expectations of the community. So also, we got a new ladder truck. So take the opportunity to stop by and see the new ladder truck. It's awesome. It's an awesome piece of equipment.
Saw it sitting out in the drive today.
Yeah, we was training. The gentleman from Wisconsin came down. We've been conducting training for the last 3 days before it goes in service.
Brought the weather when it came.
It's a beautiful truck.
Chief, is this a new truck or a refurbished truck?
This is new.
Brand new one?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
This is the new one and when you get your audit, remember last year, which is like 2 years ago, calendar-wise, we made the first half of the payment. Obviously, they don't keep those on the lot anywhere. You spec it, you pay for half, they build it, then you pay along. So we paid the second half, and we're now in possession of. And yes, I rode the boom all the way up in the basket. That's my obligatory one time.
Well, I just
It was
picked
cold.
that time to be under the weather, didn't I? I couldn't ride the fire truck, and I couldn't dedicate the new highway.
It was cold. It was really nice.
I'll picture this pushing.
It was cold.
Well, and, you know, Councilman Swears asked a pretty important question there, and I think we as council and ought to say a great thank you to the command staff at the fire department and our city manager and our city finance, because we have over the last few years done some serious upgrading of our equipment with a mix of some new and some refurbished or used, slightly used.
Yes.
We've found a resource for some incredibly nice used equipment, and we've updated our rolling stock, and that's due to the magic of our manager and the finance people, Debbie and John, and what they are able to do, and the thoroughness of your people in finding this equipment and
Yes.
speccing and ordering. So we've come a long way in the last 7, 8 years as far as our upgrading of equipment, and we're proud of you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's a good staff, the command staff, Chief Cockman, Chief King, and Chief Floyd. They don't come any better. They don't come any better. And it's an honor. It's an honor to serve alongside the men and women of Asheboro.
Well, we're certainly honored to have you in Asheboro.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Leonard, item 11A, you've got a request for council action on implementation of revised hangar rental rates and procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. This item was discussed at the previous meeting, at which time City Council instructed the city attorney to produce a resolution based on the recommendation of the Airport Authority at their last meeting, setting the airport hangar rental fees. This resolution also authorizes staff to investigate integrating the month-to-month leasing of the hangars into the FBO's lease agreement. Staff recommends adoption of this resolution by reference.
Questions?
And we're moving that way, Mayor. Mr. Moffett mentioned, who has lots of aviation experience, and Chairman Knight, the aviation market is very fast-paced right now, active, and the more we can push down to the authority and the fixed base operator, our fixed base operator, Cardinal Air, to manage, it takes this whole level of bureaucracy out, and they're the subject matter experts on aviation. So that's what we're moving. That's what we're moving to.
Always forward, lighten and load.
Okay, you've asked us for a,
Motion on item A.
yep. May I have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution approving the hangar rental rates by reference.
I have a motion to adopt by reference. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Burks is the second. Questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item B, update on potential acquisition of existing hangar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last council meeting, staff was instructed to investigate funding options for the possible purchase of the southernmost T hangars, which are the Butch Coltrane hangars, also known as Hangar N. After contacting the Division of Aviation, it was determined that MPE funds were eligible for use in the purchasing of this hangar. The current MP funding is as follows. For the 2017 year, we have a remaining $84,461. This money expires May of 2021. For the 2018, we have the full amount of $150,000. 2019, the full amount of $150,000, and 2020, the full amount of $150,000, for a total MPE funds of $534,416. Actually, $461, excuse me. MPE funding requires a 90-to-10 match, which is roughly $16,700 per year. So with those 3 years, plus the partial for 2017, comes to approximately $59,485. Staff is requesting direction to proceed with the acquisition of Hangar N using the existing MPE funds.
Questions?
So again, following on, Mayor, if we can acquire this hangar, we can then put it under the control of the FBO2. So it's all, we're trying to move where everything's, and they're right on scene to rent from and manage the facility better.
Has a price been established?
I have not heard a price, no, sir.
We'll have to,
That's
with your guidance tonight, we'll have to go through the public because it will be a public acquisition, so we have to go through
Yes,
the process.
it will need,
An appraisal and.
there will need to be an appraisal and all that done through the Division of Aviation or through WK Dixon. But the Division of Aviation will require.
What is the size of the hangar? You know?
I do not. I'm thinking there's 9 or 10 spaces in it, but I'm not sure.
I'll be
Size.
interested in getting that information back as we continue our discussion of the potential of building additional hangars out there to be proactive and have an inventory for tracking aircraft, which is, the mayor champions, it is the best tax item there is in the whole budget.
I will say that if the full amount is not expended just in the purchase of this, it is also eligible for construction to a point. And there was some rules that we had to follow and stuff. It could be possible that it wasn't a 90-10. And we will also be getting the 2021 in May, so there'll be an additional 150,000.
Excellent.
Great. Okay, that's just an update. Okay. You looking for consensus or direction?
I think so, Mayor, so we can begin the process of acquisition.
In case someone asks, it'd probably be good to have a motion, so it's
All right.
in the record.
I'll entertain a motion directing staff to proceed with the potential acquisition or negotiating acquisition of the existing hangar inn.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, so move.
Got a motion from Mr. Moffett. May I have a second? Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. You have your marching orders, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Negotiate well. Actually, it's up to some appraisals, right?
That's correct. We have to do fair market value
Okay.
based on the
All
appraisal.
right, item 11C is an update on 64 bypass signage and the need for the installation of airport directional signage.
Yes, sir. As you're all aware, December 18th was the opening day for the US 64 bypass. And after opening, it was noticed that directional signage was not present for the Asheboro Regional Airport, had not been installed at either westbound or eastbound directions or at the exits. Staff contacted the NCDOT District Supervisor, Mr. Jerron Monroe, to request signage be added. Mr. Monroe has since put staff in touch with the resident engineer, Mr. Kerry Fine, with whom we are awaiting information concerning the installation of this directional signage.
That is oversight or a staffing problem at DOT or hard to know?
I think it's just an oversight.
I did notice the highway been open 3 days, and I came up 42, and they still had the black shrouds over the signs directing onto the bypass at 42.
The sign trucks were still moving around when we were opening.
Coming up 42, they had all these signs saying east and west 64, but they were covered. Didn't know what you were looking at.
Yeah, some of that's probably a small portion of it being a design build job instead, because the sign package was presented instead of the state mandating. But they'll catch it up, I'm sure.
Okay.
Signs are open.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Leonard. Appreciate it.
They got
All right.
Michael, good job, Michael.
All right, Mr. Ogburn, 12A is an update on the impact of the pandemic.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Well, the pandemic continues in Randolph County. These are, I believe as of yesterday, as of today, 1/7. Randolph has had 8,921 cases, and unfortunately, we've had 134 deaths from COVID. Randolph County is still in code red, which means, and a lot of people ask, what does that mean? We're in critical community spread, so there's, it's countywide. And people ask me, where is COVID? Where is it? It's just all over the county. It's all zip code, just rural parts of the county or urban parts of the county. Coming online is the vaccine. Before I move on, I do want to say that the governor did extend the modified stay-at-home order, including a curfew. And also on top of that, I think this is the first time done during this entire pandemic, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mandy Cohen, issued a public health order to the same requirements. So there's an executive order and a public health order. That's at 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., and that will expire January the 29th at 5 p.m. Now, we're in the the vaccine phase of the pandemic. Our firefighters who want the vaccine are taking it now. They're critical employees. Asheboro Police Department is a little later in the pandemic vaccine plan. We've had serious discussions with, and we want to thank the Public Health Director, Susan Hayes, and County Manager, Hal Johnson. We are concerned, obviously, at our level that the water plant operators and the wastewater plant treatment operators need to be higher in the system. You will see there under the green bar where it says utilities, I think it says utilities, and we think that should be higher up. That is not, this chart is not made by Randolph Public Health, the US CDC and the North Carolina DHS. Now, the governor has activated the National Guard to help with the vaccine. They began this week, people 75 and older. If someone watching out there is 75 or older, or you have family members that are 75 or older, you call the number, go to the county website, Public Health, call the number. The number is jammed up. Now, it's not the county's fault. It's 145,000 people can't get in all at one time. The state's whole system's jammed up, but the county's working hard to get it open, and you can get the vaccine. It's not just like taking your kids down to the health department when they were little and getting their vaccines. You just schedule an appointment and you went down there. The state's logging you in. They're verifying your age. They got your address, your contact information. Then they set you up for the second round of vaccines. Remember, this one is 21 days. I think is what Randolph County has. You need both vaccines to be 100% protected from the pandemic. So we're working hard to get the employees through. Now, this week, and I think Jeff got it, City Attorney Jeff Sugg got it, the School of Government did publish their opinion that current federal and state labor law and occupational health and safety law will require, you can require as a condition of employment, employees be vaccinated. It's been tested. There's I think a Supreme Court case in 1905. It's been tested. It's in the statutes. That being said, we have not got to that point yet, and the HR staff and I and the management team to require that. We will wait till other health agencies like that, require it. As you're aware, most of your vaccines are required to go to first grade or kindergarten, if you remember. You can't go to public school without them. That's where they get you started on the series. So that's where it goes. Now, it is having impact on our operations. We have been down to minimum staffing in the police department. We've been to minimum staffing in the fire department. Unfortunately, we've had COVID here at City Hall, employees here, and all our other functions. We have not got to the point yet we cannot function, fortunately. We continue to social distance, mask, all the things required. You just heard Chief Summers mention it. Your budget Fire Station 2, we've widened out the area. At Fire Station 1, we've separated the two units down there. Remember, we serve two sides of town out of one building. We've separated them on what would be the training end, and the offices is now one fire crew, and on the other end of the building is the other fire crew. Remember, they have to move as a unit. They don't move as individuals. So if you don't want to get the two crews intermingled, and we have to separate our training. At the water plant and wastewater plant, we're separated. We distance, so we social distance as much as we can, and we do mask. Now, we have a lot of young people learning the water and wastewater trade. And Mr. Moffitt will tell you he has his license. It's a very hard test. Takes a while to learn how to get it. And you can't just, why we normally hire people with Randolph Community College education, you can't go down there and just take the exam. So when we have a person sick and a person training, they both have to be out. They both have to quarantine. So we're working hard to stay at minimum staffing on that too, and pushing out to the vaccine who wants it. We've got a long way to go in North Carolina. We've just begun. I say every time we have a budget briefing, or Jeff or I or Trevor mention it, we always talk about North Carolina is a Dillon's Rule state and it's very centralized. The state is in control of this. You'll see in other places, in Florida, for example, it is not. They're letting each county, and that's where they lined up all around miles for people to get the vaccine, right? That's not the process we're following here in North Carolina. We're following a different process, so. In Randolph County, or Asheboro at large, Randolph Health told you at the December 11th meeting when I was actually quarantined and called in on the phone that they were taking COVID patients. They were taking up to a certain intensity or illness of COVID patients. They went all the way up to most sick or most ill COVID patients, and they've had moments when they've had to divert COVID patients to other facilities because we were at max. So it continues to be a real impact on our local health care system. I just put that out. We continue to run some medical calls in fire department, but not most of them. We're running life-critical calls, whether it's COVID-based or not. But if it's a transport call, a lifting call, something we don't, in that sense, we don't have to run. We would typically run, but to protect our own firefighters, we're not. The EMS ambulance crews, they decon, just like Chief Summers showed us back in the summer how we come and decon, wash ourselves down. Ambulance crews are doing that too. Because once they have the virus, they have to get it clean and off of them. So that's where we are. Following along on number B, Mayor, and you're welcome. You have a spot, take your shot. That bar chart is the best way to understand the COVID vaccination process here in North Carolina, and you can get that right at as yourspot.yourshot.nc.gov. It's pretty good to put on the refrigerator if you want to follow along. Now, we have item B in your packet, Mayor, it's a request for council action on a resolution authorizing a limited amount of emergency leave, administrative leave for eligible city employees. Now, you may remember right before Christmas, Congress was really active on a stimulus package, was called a stimulus package. Most of us remember the $600 or the $2,000, and was state and local aid going to be in it? Was there going to be a liability for universities and employers, and to prevent them if they required people to come to work? All that dropped out of the final bill. They modified the existing Families First Corona Relief Act personnel requirements. And that required all the employers in the country, private or public, to have a 2-week leave, so employees could leave, 2 weeks paid leave, employees could leave and be quarantined. You don't want sick people coming to work and infecting your workplace. Now the original bill expired December the 31st, midnight last year, which seems like a long time ago, but was just last week. We as a city could opt in to the new part of the bill, which runs till the 31st of March. We are choosing to opt out with this resolution and establish our own local city part of our personnel policy. I guess section is more calls, because we realize that here in North Carolina, we're not going to meet the vaccination requirements by the 31st of March. You look on that bar chart, if you got kids that are under 18, Santa Claus may be on the vaccine out there. So what we're asking the council, Mayor, with this resolution is to establish the same perimeters that the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act had, beginning on January 1, 2021, so that it will actually backdate it if somebody is in the program now, and we do have employees who are. And there'll be temporary leave and that's a form of emergency administrative leave is what we've decided to call it at our level. It gives you, it also allows us to utilize our Family and Medical Leave Act, which was prior federal employment law, and process in a manner that's consistent with all the existing policies here at the city. We do recommend this be approved by reference, as that it'll allow employees to have the protection. We don't want employees coming to work sick, eating, and that's the thing about this pandemic. They may not know they have it, and we know about asymptomatic carriers, but if you have a history of sinus infections or allergies or migraines, you may think that's just what you have, and you may find out that's not what you have. We had an employee who called and said, "You think I have COVID?" And they said, "Well, what are your symptoms?" They said, "Well, my head stopped up, I got a sore throat, and my back hurts." And she said, "Well, you may." "No, I have that every day." Right? "Have you had a fever?" "No." "Then you probably don't have COVID." So we continue to do that. If we have an employee who thinks they are that, we do send them to their family physician or White Oak Emergency Care for testing. Our employee health center does not provide COVID testing, nor do we allow folks to come in there for COVID treatment. So Mayor, we'd request that be approved. This resolution, if approved, would expire on midnight, December the 31st, 2021, as it is an emergency provision in our personnel policy.
I'll entertain a motion to approve by reference this resolution authorizing the limited amount of emergency administrative leave for eligible city employees.
So moved.
Got a motion from Mr. Burks. Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Mayor, item 12C is a request from the council to authorize the mayor to execute the documents necessary for undertaking the Community Development Block Grant Coronas grant program awarded to the city. I reported back on December the 11th to the council that the city had received the $900,000. We've received the grant agreements. You want to ever know what one looks like? Here's the beginning of it. This is just to get the mayor's signature. This is not the program. This is all the things that when the mayor and I sign, we are agreeing to follow all the laws and regulations and all that. So remember, our partner through the distribution of the funds will be the United Way, since they have an experience. So Mayor, if you would, get the council's authority for you to execute these documents to begin the grant process.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we approve the request to authorize you to execute documents necessary for the CDBG CV grant.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Mayor, and item 13 on our upcoming events, January the 18th is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. It's a city holiday. The garbage collection, recycling schedule will shift one day. So if you're on Monday, it'll be Tuesday. If you're on Tuesday, it'll be Wednesday. Recycling will be on Thursday. Due to the pandemic, Mayor, we have not been notified about a Dr. King birthday celebration. I'm assuming that, well, I know it doesn't meet the requirements for social distancing and the governor's emergency, and now the state health director, secretary requirements. So if there's some event, some outdoor event, I will let you know. I've not heard of one yet. Normally, Mayor, we have a lot of events, you know, in the spring. At this point, we don't have any scheduled. We continue, we are not operating Sunset Theater. The gym is open on a limited basis. Of course, our parks and tennis center and golf course is open. School is back in. High school athletics is open on a very limited basis. Dining is still 50% indoor dining. So, as I said, the governor's executive order and the secretary's public health order continue.
Okay. Mr. Burks?
A month ago, I made a request on behalf of the Salvation Army because things were looking very dire at that point. So that just goes to show you how well people are watching us on YouTube, because we were really concerned that people weren't out shopping, they weren't dropping money in the red kettles. We actually made a little more money this year. We got more checks, which is what I requested last time. And it's amazing. I mean, the need is greater than what we have, but we're way far ahead of where we thought we would be. So thank you to everybody who chipped in to help out the Salvation Army, that in turn helps our community. Thank you.
I just encourage everyone to stay safe, remain vigilant in our efforts and our prayers for all the COVID-related activities. It's hopefully on the cusp of improvement. I congratulate Councilman Bell on his immunity.
Ms. Redding?
Likewise.
Again, everybody stay safe and prayers for our country. We have some work to do.
You think?
Hopefully, we will be able to unite.
Yep. Mr. Bell?
No school tomorrow. Just got the word. City schools are closed.
Really?
Well, just
That's what we need, is one more reason.
That's it. That's it. Glad I got my milk and bread early.
Mr. Swears?
Oh, for the weather.
I'm good, everything. I'm just ready for the snow.
Obviously, Mayor, as Mr. Bell mentioned, I was just trying to figure out why school would be out. But the weather, what it, it's the only weather we have, right, Roy's folks? We are prepared. We have our equipment ready to go. Our routes are established. We have salt and sand ready to go. If there's a weather event, if we have snow or ice or some combination. At this point, the last emergency management received communication we received late this afternoon was Asheboro may be too far south. So we'll just see. We'll work if we have to. We'll probably have a crew on up there, a public services crew. You know, if we bring them in and pay overtime, nothing happens. So it's always more prepared, the luckier you get, right?
Staff, anybody? Okay. Chief still out there? Chief, appreciate you being out here. And I know some of your management, command staff have been quarantined, and I hope all that continues to work out well for you guys. Stay safe. Happy New Year, everybody.
Mayor, we'll get you to sign these documents tomorrow.
Guess I gotta read.
You ain't got to read them.
You guys
There's actually more than that, John, so.
Yeah.
We'll get them.
We'll get them to sign tomorrow or early next week.